All right, live from Studio 2 here on CIUT 89.5 FM. We are live from Studio 2 every Tuesday from 3 until 4 p.m. And this week we have the Luvmenauts in the studio. Welcome to you all. Thank you for being here. And I'd love to just go around if we could, and or not sure how many microphones you have on the other side of the glass there, but if you could give us, let us know who all is in the room with us today, performing live for us here.
Sure, I'll try to do my best to do all the introductions. My name is Andrew Molgen. I'm playing keys and sax today. This is Morgan Gardner on trumpet, Jonathan Hyde on drums, Graham Moffat on bass, Gabe Kong on guitar, and Justin McHugh on auxiliary percussion. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you for taking the time. My name is Mike Tadros. I'm here hosting the interview for this hour, and already off to a great start with that performance. What was the first song we heard there?
That was Cruise Ship Enterprise.
Cruise Ship, and I've actually played that one on my program, I think a number of times. I discovered the Luvmenauts a few years ago. I think CIUT actually had some kind of promotion on air at one point for one of your I think it was the In Space album release party.
That sounds right, yeah, the Baby G. You guys have spun a bunch of our tunes. Appreciate the support.
Oh, sure. we love your music, and obviously we're happy to do it, and very happy that you took the time to be here today. How did you guys sort of come to meet and all know each other?
The Luvmenauts was kind of born out of me and Jonathan on drums, and two other founding members. We're just sort of consummate side performers in the Toronto music scene, and doing things like weddings and corporate events and everything in between. And Luvmenauts was sort of in response to all of those various roles we had taken on and trying to be whatever that wasn't, if that makes sense. We came together with a bunch of eclectic ideas and just kind of made it work together, and it's a very democratic writing process, and here we are now with a much larger band.
So how did it start, and how many pieces do you have now in the band?
We originally have 4-piece, and we put a lot of self-released albums out on Bandcamp, going as far back as maybe 2014, I want to say. So it's been around a minute. And then we got picked up by Do Right Records with John Kong, and the last 2 releases have been released on that label, In Space and Ephemera. And that's been really great for us, just to have a little boost in terms of distribution and getting the music out there. And now it's sort of more of a collective. Creating the albums live takes a lot. There's a lot of intricate parts to them, and so recreating it live takes a lot of bodies. So we've added a bunch of auxiliary members. Yeah.
Awesome. When you normally live, you don't record your albums. They're not live off the floor, right?
No, it's...
This is a little bit different for you guys, maybe?
It's just kind of recreating that album sound as best we can live. And we've tried a bunch of different things. But yeah, it's fun having your pals on stage with you. So.
Yeah. Is that sort of the key for you? A lot of it, I'm sure, comes down to equipment, but also just coordinating between all the band members, right?
I mean, yeah, scheduling music is a real thing, and obviously the more folks you add, it can become a financial thing as well.
Yeah.
In some of our earliest shows, it was just the core 4 members and a lot of pre-recorded tracks and other kind of studio wizardry to kind of recreate that sonic sound, which is really important to us. It's really a lot of the albums are, it's sound first. And so recreating those textures and those synth sounds live was really important. But there's something to be said about having other musicians on with you and making it a more organic thing. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm having a great time playing with these guys. So
yeah, no, it sounds like it. We're having a great time listening. So you guys have been playing. You said, or you started recording in 2014. Were you guys playing together before that?
We had played together in a variety of different groups led by other people, but it was sort of the first venture that we had done creatively for ourselves. We had backed up other artists and like I said, corporate things and all the maybe unsexy things about being a professional musician, and so that was a real venture for us to do something for ourselves. And we had played a few shows, but like I said, it was difficult to kind of create the show live, and so it was fairly sparse when we did. But we had some really wonderful opportunities in the past. We played at the Phoenix opening for Sean Kuti, Fela Kuti's son back in the day.
Yeah.
And just a couple other things. And we're really playing a lot more lately, I find.
Yeah.
and yeah, happy to do it.
How would you describe the sound of the band? Maybe where it was, how it started, and where it is now.
I'd say it's maintained a pretty eclectic vibe. I think we bill ourselves as like cinematic soul or like library selects. I found a lot of inspiration from library music. It's just like records that would be used as stings and fillers on radio back in the day. But instead of having a online library, you'd have a massive library of vinyl records, and you'd pull pre-recorded music for that. And there's like a lot of unsung heroes that made a lot of incredible music that just sort of lived in like the BBC vaults for years and years. And it wasn't until like mostly hip-hop artists sort of rediscovered these dollar bin gems and pulled these songs out. And I feel like that's the closest thing I can kind of pigeonhole our music to, because it's so disparate in genre. For anyone listening, we're not a calypso band or a tropicalia band by any means, but we'll pepper that stuff in. I guess a lot of movie soundtracks as well can be really eclectic in genre and theme, and we sort of base some of our albums are almost like soundtracks to movies that never were. And I could hear Cruise Ship Enterprise being in the background of like Barbarella, which has nothing to do with ships or cruises, but yeah.
Well, it sounds, like I said, it all sounds really good. I've been a big fan for a long time now, and really dig the eclectic sound that you have.
Thanks.
And I think that gives you sort of, as you were speaking to before, allows you to get out to more venues, play more shows, ultimately get more exposure, because you're not confined to say, this is a rock show, so we're just having rock bands and that kind of thing. Like, I feel like you guys can fit in a lot of different, on a lot of different bills, a lot of different venues and different lineups and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. I mean, we definitely appreciate CIUT for having the most eclectic taste on radio and finding us. And because I don't know if we really fit anywhere else on the dial, at least in Toronto. So I think it goes both ways. I think being eclectic certainly keeps it interesting for us and for the audiences, but yeah, I won't get into the business of it.
No, there's not a lot of stations giving exposure to musicians who most certainly deserve it, and you're definitely one of those groups as well. So we're happy to be here. Appreciate the kind words and the support from the Luvmenauts to CIUT.
Of course.
And yeah, we'll. I was just thinking of the time here. Maybe we'll just talk a little bit more about the overall sound and maybe some of your influences, musical influences, both personally and collectively, and how that sort of comes out in your work.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but yeah, like definitely movie soundtracks and a lot of that cinematic music from that late 60s, 70s era, things like David Axelrod and the Love Unlimited Orchestra, where they weren't really for movies, but they had very cinematic feels to them. If you have us back, I'll bring a string section next time or something.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, we'd really have you guys crammed in this studio here.
I don't know. It really just we've never really put any boxes on anything, especially in the creative writing process. Like I mentioned, it's very democratic between me, Jonathan Hyde, another member, Alex Furlot, who couldn't be here today, and Josh Cavan as well. And we come in with ideas, we flesh them out together, and there's really, I think the key is just not going in with any kind of intention. So we work really fast, we create a lot of music in a very short amount of time, and then kind of sift through it and figure out what maybe makes sense together. But it's pretty surprising, I find, how you can cohesively connect a bunch of music simply by putting it under the same album title or a catchy cover. That's part of the magic, maybe. But I think the other thing that ties all the sound together is just the sonic production. Like, we're really tied to that sort of crunchy, vintage, lo-fi sound.
Yeah.
And as long as you're mixing things and putting things through those filters, it can kind of really make everything cohesive, I think. But yeah, I mean, I got a bunch of ideas cooking up for like other weird themed albums, so I like try to keep it open as much as possible.
Yeah.
Keeps it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that level of freedom and creativity take and have as musicians shows in your music. It's not something that, you're just after looking for profit or money or anything like that. So I think it really shows in the professionalism and just the overall sound of your music.
Thanks.
For the tunes you have picked out today that you'll be playing, performing for us live, any particular albums you're focusing on, or how did you go about creating the set list for us this afternoon?
Well, we have a show actually this Saturday or Friday evening, technically Saturday morning at Drome Taberna at Queen and Augusta. They have music from 2:30 till 4 a.m. and we're playing the late spot. So a lot of the music selections today are going to be sort of in preparation for that show as well. Selections from the latest record, Ephemera, the one prior, In Space, and a couple selections from the really old archives. Italian Wedding Soup, I think, from Luvmenauts 3, and maybe even from our debut. So we have maybe 5 albums under our belt now, not including the Christmas albums. So there's quite a bit of library to draw from. So just bangers only today.
Sweet. All right. Well, hey, let's get back into the music
Sure.
now. What are we going to start with for this set here?
I think we're going to start with Spice Always Flows from In Space.
One of my favorites.
Right on.
All right. You're listening to the Luvmenauts live in Studio 2 here on CIUT 89.5 FM. All right, we are live in Studio 2, CIUT 89.5 FM. And wow, the Luvmenauts here with us performing for you live here on 89.5 FM. And Andrew, why don't you give us a little rundown of the few songs that we heard in that set?
Yeah, see if I can remember here. It's all a blur already. Let's see here. We started with Spice Always Flows from In Space. We followed it up with Pimp Walk from the latest album, Ephemera. Heard a couple solos on that one. And then we finished off with Giacomo Johnson. I don't remember the entire full Italian title, but it roughly translates to Jack Johnson Suffers Another Hallucination.
Very surfy psychedelic sound that I certainly dig.
Right on.
And yeah, the song before, remind me that the title was Pimp Walk?
That's right.
Right, yeah, and you mentioned a few solos in there. We had some sax, keyboard, guitar, trumpet.
Yeah, we heard Gabe Kong on guitar. We heard Morgan Gardner on trumpet and myself on keys and sax.
Yeah, and so you're switching between the keys and sax for just so our listeners are aware, which is definitely a treat, and I'm sure poses an extra challenge for yourself. And then who else do we have here as well? We got someone on bass and someone on drums.
That's right. We have Graham Moffat on bass, Jonathan Hyde on drums, and Justin McHugh on auxiliary percussion, ripping the bongos on those last couple tunes.
Yeah, indeed. And just remind us again who's missing from the band today?
It really depends. Our main four, that sounds ominous. The main founding members, Alex Furlot and Josh Cavan, just due to location and some medical reasons couldn't make it, but I hope they're listening at home. We miss them. Wish they were here. We could definitely stuff 2 more bodies in this room, I think.
We'll have to do it next time. Yeah,
right
absolutely. I think this program will actually re-air at 1 a.m., not tonight, but tomorrow night.
Okay.
So anybody that maybe missed a portion of this program, you can always tune in again and check it out there. You can also find the Luvmenauts music all over the place. Where's the go-to platforms?
Yeah, we're on all the major streaming platforms, iTunes, Apple Music. Check us out on Bandcamp as well. We have digital music as well as physical media up there. And we got some stuff on YouTube as well. I imagine this will be added to that as well.
Yeah, I think so. The
Right
CIUT YouTube page. Yeah,
Beautiful.
Henry Lewis will take care of that.
Great.
And yeah, just having an awesome time. Thank you all for listening to this program live from Studio 2 every Tuesday between 3 and 4 p.m. Also just want to talk about the name, the Luvmenauts, for those who may have not seen it written. It's Luvmenauts, like the astronauts, except L-U-V, Luvmenauts. How did you guys come up with that name?
I don't rightfully remember exactly. I think he was just kind of digging through albums from that era. A lot of like the faceless funk groups from that time, they had like a single release and then disappeared into obscurity, and they're not even like their faces aren't on the jackets, and they just had a lot of the bands from back in the day before it got brought back with like the Hives and the Vines in like early 2000s. I guess I thought it was clever at the time, the flowers, the suffix of the astronauts in there. And it's kind of served us well. We've sort of gone into outer space a few times with the last couple of releases, and it now just seems kind of apt. So,
did you have that kind of space sound or component to your sound at the beginning, or that kind of grew over time?
I think it really grew out of COVID. We were working on an album together, even at a time when like getting together in groups of 2 was frowned upon, if not fully illegal. So it was kind of tough to make an album together.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was sort of recorded remotely, individually, but communicating the entire time. And so really provided an opportunity to like dig into synths and other sort of solitary endeavors. And I think that's how the album sort of got fleshed out into that really electronic-y, synthy sound. We never really delved into that before. It was a lot of like acoustic sounding instruments, Rhodes and Wurlitzers and Hammonds, at least as far as keyboards go. But that one definitely was a departure.
Yeah.
But you work within the confines of the
Yeah.
law, I guess.
Yeah. And you said that sort of came out of COVID and the lockdown and...
Yeah, we had managed to make beds for that album all together, like bed tracks, like the rhythm section, drums, bass, guitar, keys, and then we couldn't really get together anymore. So a lot of it was sort of tossing around tracks to each other and working in our own respective home studios and houses and using whatever was around, which happened to be a bunch of weird synths at the time.
Yeah, well, it must have been tough to maintain that sort of consistency when you're all recording in different locations, probably using different software, different equipment, and all that. So to coordinate that and make it all, flow in one album is very impressive. And you wouldn't get that impression when you listen to the album.
I appreciate
it
that.
It sounds all very organized.
I think doing the bed tracks together definitely is like the glue of the album. Like if you have a consistent drum sound throughout an album, it really glues it all together, which is always like something we strive for, of course. And obviously like the technical difficulties of just not being in the same room together, but I think we just kind of really missed the creative process, being able to like bounce ideas and have like an immediate response from the other members of the band, whether an idea is good or maybe not so good. And that's always kept us really honest and just fostered some great ideas. So when you're left to your own devices in a room, you can either be riddled with guilt or overconfidence, and I think either thing is not ideal sometimes. But I'm happy with the album. I really am, and I think we did the best we could given the global pandemic.
No, like a lot of challenges for a lot of people, the music industry in particular, for sure. Just on the note of creativity and the process of writing and recording, I had a quote. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was in regard to your last release. Saying that we wanted to create an album that defied categorization, something that would take listeners on a journey beyond the confines of traditional music. Why is that important for you, and why would it be important for musicians in general to take that approach?
Oh boy, I can't really speak for other musicians. Well, like I said, with Luvmenauts, it was really sort of a response to where we were in our careers at the time, and I guess it continues to be that. Everyone in the band is pretty much a full-time professional musician, which means playing all kinds of music, often for very specific reasons, and sort of approaching music as a means to an end, or even like almost like a tradesman. I always equate it to like a woodworker having cabinetry is the thing that pays the bills, and sure, it's like he's working with wood, but when he gets to create his own, or he or she or they create their own sculptures and do that for the love of the game and sell that's really like where the joy is, but it's often where none of the money is either. But without getting too political, I guess, like I think this is a very free expression for us. I hope it is for all the members I've brought in as well. And just want to have fun with music, and really, if it has like a punk rock ethos of rejecting, playing Brown Eyed Girl for the 1 millionth time at someone's wedding, then so be it. You know, I don't know. Other people have very different. I'm sure you've heard a million interviews on here of what sort of drives people, and I think I don't know, having fun with it and sort of having like a bit of like a sardonic or like sarcastic sort of approach to it as well. Like a lot of this music's kind of silly, and I think I miss that a lot of times. Music can get very earnest, almost to a fault, and I think bringing some joy in it, whether it's levity or horsing around with your buds in a sweaty room, that's really all that really binds this ship, I guess, which fills the sails. Save me before I spin off into
no,
metaphor hell.
It gives you guys a really unique sound, which is important, right, in this day and age. And that's where you find your success. And that appeals to listeners of, just as an example, of CIUT compared to people turning on the commercial radios, as you alluded to, playing the same songs from the same artists over and over again, which I think people are increasingly becoming more aware of and tired of. And seeking out radio stations like CIUT and bands like the Luvmenauts. So again, I think it's a no-brainer that we have you here in the studio today. And again, can't thank you enough for putting on this performance for our listening audience this afternoon. I guess just a little segue into the topic of AI in music, which seems to be a popular topic now, but obviously can have not so great effect on the creative process, human creativity in general, both in music and radio. I see you alluding to Jonathan there on the drums. I think we might be able to pick up your voice if you had anything to, or you can pass the microphone if you had anything to say on that topic.
He's sticking with drums, it seems.
That's fair. But
I pointed to him because we're massive fans of AI as a tool, and particularly with that last point we left off on of like levity and kind of comedy to a lesser extent. And as far as like using it as a tool in music, I think that remains to be seen. I'm resistant to like completely call it or reject it. I think in the same way that like visual artists probably rejected Photoshop when it came out, I think it's a tool, and I think there's things it can be used for. And if you're making derivative art, then AI is perfect for that. I'm no stranger to using ChatGPT and other AI tools. I mean, if you've seen our Instagram, a lot of the promo for the album and our shows is using a variety of AI tools. And none of it's in like any kind of earnestness. It's just, I mean, we're making memes for lack of a better word, I guess. But I don't know, I think AI is really interesting. And I think it's only going to threaten those who weren't really doing anything interesting to begin with.
yeah.
Not the shots fired, I guess.
That's interesting. So you see a place for it, generally speaking, in the music industry in the future and in the digital age that we're in?
In music, it's hard to say. I don't really know. I mean, I've heard some of the AI music that's out there. I think there's like Obscurist Vinyl is one of the ones that went quite viral. And I think that's a good example of people who really know how to use AI and use the right prompts and to kind of generate something that's really convincing and human, and frankly, they're hilarious as well. As far as like the ethics of it go, I think we're in the infancy of it, and it's really going to remain to be seen.
Yeah.
But I get fed it on the algos on Instagram. There's a lot of people who are like doing interesting things, and I think you need to have like if you're doing generative AI art, you need to have the pedigree and the knowledge about the things that you're putting into that brain, because it's just a blank slate.
Yeah.
And I don't really see how that's that different necessarily than taking inspiration from the people before you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't want to get in trouble with the U of T Arts Department or whatever.
No. Well said, though. I think that's a great point and perspective you have on.
I mean, I'm using AI right now, and we're using AI to support all the other things that go along with being a band. I mean, we have to wear a lot of hats. It's not just playing music. It's promoting shows.
Yeah.
It's just generating content endlessly on social media. It's banter. We joked about ChatGPT writing all of my answers for this interview. And when I listen back, maybe I'll wish I had done that. But I've used it for stage banter and things like that. But I'm not trying to replace. I don't know how to keep going on that point. Really.
Yeah. No, you're not necessarily replacing your creative process or
Not at all.
or anything like that. Yeah. No, I get that for sure. Speaking of social media, where can people find you guys on, and what social media can people find you guys on?
I'd say we're most active on Instagram. The Luvmenauts on Instagram. We have a YouTube channel. It has a couple like snippets of live footage and some music videos we've put out. I think we're on Facebook still, if anyone uses that. I'm outing myself as a elder millennial here.
I'm still on Facebook.
Instagram is where to find us. That's where we'll be promoting our shows and posting about merch and things like that. Anything and all things Luvmenauts.
Cool. And you mentioned you have a show coming up on Friday night, late Friday night, early Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Where was that again?
Drome to Burna.
Drome, yeah, perfect. That's a show we find frequently. The bands we have on this program have played there at least once, so it's kind of a favorite of ours. We love the setting, the venue, and the bands that they bring in there. So yeah, anybody listening, you got nothing to do Friday night, make some time to go out and see this band, the Luvmenauts. How many members do you have performing at that show?
I think we're adding an additional guitar for that show. So what is that, 7? 7 folks, yeah.
Wow. So that's going to be a nice full sound,
Yes.
and I'm sure a hell of an energetic night.
It's a vibe. I
Yeah.
mean, when all the bars close along Queen, there's really not much else to go. So Drome is open. So we're going to be hitting at 2:30 a.m. and playing all the way to the second last call around 3:59. So if you feel like ruining your Saturday, come on out. It's going to be a good time.
Any other shows coming up, or just that's the only one for now?
That's the one we're focusing on right
Perfect.
now.
Awesome. All right, well, I think it's time. We have just under 15 minutes to go in this program. If we want to get back into some music for our listeners, and just let us know what's coming up next.
Sounds good. Thanks. Shuttle?
And that does it live from Studio 2. Thank you so much to the Luvmenauts, and thank you all for listening in. Mike Tadros here, and coming up next is The Waveform.